What is going on out there, world? It's your boy Tommy on the spot for Watch Along Wrestling. Hopefully everyone is doing well and staying safe. Today is a very big day. Now, hopefully, this might be on our Watch Along Wrestling channel. This may end up being put on our Disney 101 channel. If so, we'll change it at that moment, because this is a very exciting video that I've wanted to do for quite some time here. The plan was to have this come out around WrestleMania season, but obviously, just last week, I finished up my vlogs of this year's WrestleMania in the middle of June. So I figured, why not still bring this out here now, because it is celebrating the 5-year anniversary of my trip to Orlando, Florida for WrestleMania 33. And while this gentleman who's on the line with me was not with me at WrestleMania 33, he is down in Orlando and played a big part in this trip. Steve, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. If this is going to be kind of like a co-video, then I can go ahead and say that I am magical as always. But then also, I've been trying to kind of workshop maybe what I would say for the Watch Along channel. I think right now I'm going to go with I'm feeling elite.
Oh, I like that. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Of course, you can always go, well, I'm ready to throw down, brother. But I don't know if that would be, I don't know if that is really what you'd want to be saying. But the reason why I kind of am iffy about where to put this video is because even though this is over WrestleMania 33 weekend, this video itself was this trip, this vlog that I put up, and I put this vlog up last year in preparation for WrestleMania 37. It was a 4-year anniversary of the trip, but I knew I wasn't going to be going to WrestleMania 37. Figured I'd be able to get a vlog up at the time, get people excited, while I think a number of us were still in the middle of COVID, or at least still in that lockdown phase, kind of that in-between phase where you didn't know if you were going to be starting to go out again or what you were going to be doing. So I figured I'd throw up something on the channel for everyone to kind of sink their teeth into. But I did it with the idea that there'd be so much backstory. And I feel like a lot of times when you put up a vlog, there's so much backstory. And I feel like for me personally, if I'm watching a vlog, I always enjoy hearing the story behind the story, hearing about the experience after it ended. I just put up an experience video about my trip to WrestleMania 38 last week. And I think that is almost the most fun part about it. So for me, when I made this vlog, I specifically designed it with the idea that at a later time I could reconvene. And I thought probably for the 5-year anniversary, I'd be able to reconvene with Steve and talk about this vlog that we're about to kind of do a little rewatch of, so to speak. And I'll do cutaways from what we're talking about to the footage, so you don't even need to go back and rewatch the vlog. But I thought that would be something fun that we could do. And this particular trip ends up coinciding with my engagement to my now wife, which is crazy to think it's already been 5 years.
Yeah, and I feel like that, the whole fact that it's not just the story behind the story, it's the story of the story that is behind the story.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I mean, so if you're here and you want to hear about the ins and outs of our WrestleMania trip, our wrestling, we'll get to it. But our wrestling of that week was an entire week trip, and our wrestling was only a small snippet of what we would eventually become when it comes to wrestling. We did go to NXT that weekend. We did go to WrestleMania 33, and we went to Access. But it was really only over 2 days, and we had been in Orlando for an entire week. So we're going to break down the entire week of our trip to Orlando and talk about all of that here in this video. But Steve, what do you remember, I guess, going into this trip? And then we can kind of take that as our launch point.
I remember very little, to be honest. Unfortunately, it feels like that was a lifetime ago at this point. Of course, I remember the big moment in the Magic Kingdom, and I remember a little bit also leading up to it around Hollywood Studios and stuff. I also remember you guys kind of getting into some, I don't know the hot water necessarily, but with the timeshare shenanigans and everything that you guys put yourself through.
Yeah, we will get into all that. That is literally the first thing you see on this video. We'll break down what that is. But really, for me, the idea behind this trip, obviously, I immediately get excited. Two of my big passions and things that I really enjoy are Disney, really theme parks, and obviously WWE, wrestling, and all that comes with it. So for me, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be able to go to Disney World, and I'm going to be able to then also then end my trip or start my trip, because you always do, either you do WrestleMania first or toward the end with some wrestling. So I knew this was going to be epic. I knew this was going to be great. I knew even if WrestleMania was awful, the trip and the theme parks would not be awful. So we'd be able to make it a great, great trip. And that's really what we did. So I guess this really starts back in February 1st, 2017. My wife and I went to Iceland. I proposed to my wife. It was a very exciting week ahead. And then immediately upon coming back, because once you get engaged, it's like it goes from like 0 to 60 pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
And Steve had already been married now at this point, I'd say for almost 2 years at this juncture. So when we had gone ahead and we had gotten engaged, it immediately starts with you want to find where you're going to be getting married. So you go to like venue after venue after venue. And then it gets to the planning process of the wedding party, which for me, I knew that I wanted to do something. For me, a lot of people try to do something a little gimmicky when it comes to their announcements. So I remember when you got engaged. I don't know if you remember this back. Well, I'm sure you do. But back in, I guess, 2014 or something, I had messaged you because I somehow found out that you guys had set a date. I want to say somebody put this out on social media, maybe you or your wife.
Yeah.
And you had set a date and that things were settled. And then I had texted you, oh, did you set your date? And you said, yes, we did. And I was like, oh, great. But in my head, I was like, oh, my God, I can't believe they didn't invite us. Even though, because I didn't know how the process went. I didn't know there's like, you set a date and then you get into all that later on.
Yeah.
So I just thought like, all right, they set the date and this is already all like in the wind and everything. And we just didn't get invited. And I remember calling my wife and I can't believe we didn't get invited. She's like, well, maybe they didn't want us to have to make the tough decision whether or not to come to Florida. I'm like, I can't believe it. I thought I was thinking I'd be like a best man or a groomsman at a minimum. We didn't even get invited. That's ridiculous. And she's like, well, let's give it a little time here. Like, let's see. And literally it was like 2 hours later, you called me and then asked me to be your best man and got that out of the way like a normal human being does rather quickly. And that's, you have a conversation with someone, either, this day and age, a lot of people do one or two people, sometimes two, sometimes one, and figure it out from there. Unfortunately, or fortunately, at this point, I'd already been a part of about, I think it's 6 different weddings as a groomsman. And it was pretty much told to me that I was going to include my 2 cousins, who had not been in their wedding parties. I was going to include my future brother-in-law, who obviously was like 16, 17 years old at the time. And I was going to include my childhood best friend, who also was not married. So I really knew that I had 4 slots, is pretty much where I saw things at. My wife had already kind of laid out where her people were going to be, and I had 4 slots. So my idea behind this, and it was a very good idea, I think, in theory, was I was going to take each person out and ask them in person if they wanted to be a groomsman. Because I think it's a awkward thing. Like, my wife's gotten the old group text, hey, I want to let you guys know I'm asking all of you to be my bridesmaids. Which is very nice, but the problem is if somebody's not prepared to do so, it makes them feel uncomfortable to say that they can't do it. I realize there's a lot that goes into being in a wedding party to a certain extent. You're going to have to. For me, I wanted 2 things. Do you remember the 2 things I wanted was?
Ooh, boy.
I might not have asked you this because you're the best man, so it was different for you. But do you remember the 2 things I wanted everyone to promise was?
I don't remember, honestly. No, this is horrible.
So my 2 big things for me were I wanted everyone to try to come to the bachelor party.
Okay, yeah.
And the other thing was I wanted everyone to, at the wedding, participate to a certain extent. I don't need you out there, life of the party, stealing the dance floor, but I want you out there, when we're doing the hora or, man, there's a first dance or something to that extent. I don't want a barrel of lame groomsmen sitting down there on their cell phones, hating life as my entire wife's family is out there having the time of their life with me. I want my people represented somewhat a little bit as well.
Which probably, I don't think you ever brought that up with me because I think at that point it was a foregone conclusion that both of those things were going to be happening anyway.
Right. Exactly. But for me, that's one of the reasons why I did these individual things. But then I thought, wouldn't it be fun to really after each meal, after I took each guy out and asked them to be my groomsmen, tie in some wrestling. And obviously, I think a lot of folks know I'm a huge wrestling fan. I have a friggin' YouTube channel that you guys are watching here, and know that Cody Rhodes is one of my favorite wrestlers. So at the time, Cody had left WWE in 2016, and he had unveiled this list. This is kind of what became the Cody Rhodes that inevitably led to him creating AEW. Was him basically going on every indie and making it clear who he wanted to wrestle. And it was this list that listed everyone's name that he wanted to wrestle or everything he wanted to take a part of. So I took that list and I combined it with Chris Jericho's list as well, because at the time Jericho was doing the "you've just made the list." And I thought I would unveil each one of these groomsmen over the span of about 4 weeks on my Facebook for my close friends and family to see, with the idea being that I'd also then do like a collage and everything would be great and everything would be a lot of fun and everything to that extent. And it would be a big celebration of my years of friendship with each one of these people. So in theory, that's very nice. But the problem was that they were also going to be people, well, A, it's way too over the top. It's ridiculous. And B, it's also, there were other people that were not going to be included, who had included me. And I knew this was going to lead to some awkward conversations. And by doing the list like this and leaving certain slots not filled, it made them, and then taking those people out, because I also took out the people to explain why I couldn't include them, like a complete maniac. It led to some really uncomfortable, bizarre, like, I don't know what I was thinking, and in retrospect, a total disaster.
I would say one small change that you could have done to save a lot would have been to make sure that you asked everybody first and then made the Facebook post. And also maybe kind of like maybe said, hey, you know, like, I'm going to be doing this whole thing, like, just so you know what's going on. Probably would have saved a little bit of anxiety for everybody, because I think I also know a little bit about the way the post rolled out and why they rolled out the way that they did. But on the other hand, I think that probably would have saved, especially from my part, a lot of anxiety.
Well, I think you called me at one point and we're just like, I am not going to sit here for 2 months unsure, because the idea was I knew that I was going to come and see you. So I knew this had to be done, finished with by the time I came to Florida, because I would be asking you to be my best man there in person. But with that being said, and I knew the final shot. I had the final shot in my head was the full list with one spot left, kind of with the list, and then behind you could see me taking off and being in the airplane.
Right.
So, but at the end of the day, what I should have done was done exactly what you said, and then just unveil the list like Cody with the full list of everyone's name. And then it would have just made it a lot easier, rather than doing this whole drawn out thing where people were just assuming, oh, obviously I'll be a groomsman, and then taking them out and saying, hey, so accidentally, you didn't make the list.
Yeah.
But I remember you called me and you were like, you got to just let me know. Like, I can't sit here. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to sit here, because I think the first one I did was Joe. And then I put it out there with all the empty slots underneath him, thinking, how great is this? And my mom was like, this is a terrible idea. Like, this is really not how you should do this. And then you were also, I think, I don't know if it was at that point or some other point, you called, you were like, so what is going on here? Because I'm not going to sit here and watch every single thing that goes down here.
I mean, I think it was actually the opposite, where I think basically what happened was your mom was like, you need to let Steve know. Like, what are you doing to this guy? Like, and then eventually, because I remember very vividly, like, you had called me out and I went into my backyard by my pool to have this conversation. And as you were asking me, the phone cut out. And it was, and I was like, wait, literally, what did you just say? But it was more of like, I didn't hear what you said. You either just said, I'm sorry, you're not going to be a part of the party, or I want you to be my best man. I don't know which one it was.
Well, you'd hope it wouldn't be. Let me call you to tell you you're not in. But yeah, so that kind of sets the stage for the trip. But really, the trip was also at this point, we're engaged, we're flying high, we feel like on top of the world. It's a great feeling when you first get engaged and you're going to be getting married to this person. And we're coming down to see you guys, who are some of our best friends, and going down to Florida. And then it's also combining with, we wanted also my wife's family to also go down at the same time. So they went down to visit their family. So throughout this trip, they're kind of sprinkled in as well as we go through all the different theme parks. So if you guys could go ahead into the archives of Watch Along Wrestling here. I'm going to pull this up on the channel. And this is it's titled WrestleMania 33 Full Week Vlog. And basically, the reason for that was, again, rather than splitting it out into each little piece day by day like I typically would do, because there wasn't that much footage, because at the time there was no Watch Along Wrestling. I didn't know there was going to really be much. I was doing a website, which I'll get to in a second, because I do mention it a couple of times. And I figured I'd do these little short snippet videos, but rather than doing that, I had them all out at once. So the first thing you'll see when you do go into this video, and Steven mentioned it a bit earlier, and I'll get you guys the full title here as I pull it up. It is called WWE Wrestlemania 33 Full Week Vlog in Orlando, Wrestling and Theme Parks. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that video here. And the first thing you do see is my now wife and I standing in front of a room as a gentleman announces to an entire group of people that I have now purchased a property for my wife. See, and there I am with that cheesy grin on my face, waving to the crowd there. Basically, that I've purchased a property for my wife and I to travel around the world, with the idea being that what had occurred was we had gone to a hotel. We had stayed off-site. Typically, we would stay with you guys, but at this particular trip, we stayed off-site and at a hotel. And when we got to the hotel, they said part of the hotel is that they offer discounted tickets to Universal Studios and SeaWorld. So we were like, great. We weren't even necessarily sure when to do SeaWorld, because SeaWorld's kind of that, you do it if you have time, but it's very underrated, but I don't think it's one of those that people typically do. Am I wrong to say that?
So I think what I think sometimes what the issue with SeaWorld is that you think that it's only going to be, basically it's an aquarium, right? It's a big aquarium for, like, you see Shamu and you see a bunch of like those kinds of things, but there's not really a lot else to do. The thing is that there is, but on that same kind of token, like, most of the rides are either big rides, like big Six Flags roller coasters, or they're like kiddie rides. So there isn't that like kind of like sweet spot where if you don't like roller coasters, but you're an adult that wants to go on like thrill rides, there's not really a whole lot there. There is a little bit now, but back in 2017, there really wasn't a lot, if you weren't a big roller coaster fan.
Yeah. And so we thought, okay, if you're going to get discounted tickets, great. So we went over to pick up to redeem our discounted tickets, and quickly found out that the hotel really did not offer these tickets, but instead they offered a deal where you can go to a brunch and basically get a timeshare presentation. And if you sit through that, no commitment, you can, at the end of the day, get discounted tickets to SeaWorld and Universal.
So they do offer the discounted tickets. It's just that there's catch. You have to work for it a little bit.
Right. But it probably wasn't something that was the reason we should have booked this hotel for what we were doing. But we ended up going to the presentation with no intention to buy. We've gotten much better at this. We hadn't gone to too many of these presentations at the time. And what had occurred was, the guy takes us out on the property. And I remember he brought us out onto the porch and he said, take a look out here and tell me what you see. And you see the Magic Kingdom. You see the Epcot ball. He pointed out and he was like, that right there is the new, because they just unveiled Avatar.
Mm-hmm.
What is the name of the Avatar?
Pandora.
He's like, right there is Pandora. And right back there is going to be where they're going to be doing the new Star Wars Land, Galaxy's Edge, which is coming out in a couple of years. And he was like, you're going to be out here and think about this investment opportunity. So you're going to buy this property here. And then later on, as Disney continues to expand and more people are coming in, you're going to be able to flip this for a ton of money. So it's a win-win. So I'm like,
of course it is.
Yeah. What was that?
Of course it is.
Right. So he's like, oh yeah, great, you know. So we're like, we're not gonna do it. We're not gonna do it. Not gonna do it. But then you go and you sit down, and they show you these types of presentations throughout the whole time you're there. This guy going out there, hey, he's buying for this person to take them all around the world. Everybody claps. Great, great, great. You start to go, oh, wow, this is something I'd really enjoy doing. And by the end of what we were doing, we ended up, the guy ends up leaving. First off, he also had on his phone every place that he'd been to. So it was like all these little things that just so happened to be like his last 6 saved photos were like him in Africa, him in Egypt, him all over the world. And so it was like these things. And he was great. He was the best salesman I think I've ever experienced in my life. And he said at the end, all right, well, this is the best I could do. I'm being straight up with you. And then he laughed and he's like, let me get your tickets. And he comes back and he's like, oh my God, you're not going to believe this. But today I just went to go talk to my boss. I told him you guys are freshly engaged. And he said, specifically for you, he wants to talk to you. He's going to offer you something that he does not offer to anyone else. And the guy comes over and he's like, you guys are engaged? And we're like, yeah. He's like, I'll do it for half off. And we were like, oh my God, half off. Like we about lost our minds over this. So we decided to purchase the property. And it was also, they were selling us on the idea of being able to own something, have some sort of equity. At the time, we were still living at home with our respective families. I mean, we weren't even living together yet. And so it was the type of deal where, oh, we'd be able to have something that we can call our own. We just got engaged. This is wonderful. And we ended up purchasing a property and felt on top of the world. And we had talked with a third-party representative who basically said, hey, I'm here to let you guys know. I don't work for the company. I'm here to let you know. If you want to cancel, if you have any questions, just give me a call. I'll take care of it right away. And we were like, great, sounds good. He's like, here's my direct number. The company can't tell me what to say or what to do. I work for myself, and we have to do this by law. I was like, perfect. So we felt great. We pretty much walking on water as we leave. We're off to SeaWorld, and I had texted or called you or something. Somehow I had gotten in touch with you, and I told you that I got great news. We now officially own with this company, Westgate. I'll throw them out there just in case anyone else is out there. Normally I don't do that, but I will. And so I'm feeling great. And this part of this clip here, you see us. We're underneath this kind of a walkway here. We're 2 heads in our shark teeth. We're all excited. And you said something like, "Oh boy, I'm not sure why you do that. That really doesn't make much sense. If you really wanted to do that, I could have shown you some good timeshare places or introduced you to, I guess it's Disney's
DVC, yeah, the Disney Vacation Club.
Disney Vacation Club." And he said, Westgate's not really worth it. And are you guys really coming down to Orlando so often that it's going to be worth it? And so you crushed my spirit pretty much.
I feel like your spirit was already crushed before that. This was just
letting
it was know. More of the voice inside your head coming from somewhere else that you were like, yeah, okay.
Well, and you see us here, we've done this ride, Journey to Atlantis. Have you ever been on that ride?
Yeah.
SeaWorld? Great ride. That's you go through different types of, I think it's like a half roller coaster, and then you end up in all the penguins, right?
That's 2 different rides.
Oh, it's 2 different
If you're talking about Journey to Atlantis, that's the kind of roller coaster water ride hybrid.
Yes, which is very good.
Yeah.
And then the penguin ride is...
That's something different, yeah. That's Antarctica.
Yeah. And here I am I'm going on Mako. Have you been on Mako in SeaWorld?
I've been on Mako twice.
Pretty good ride.
And the second time, it's probably going to be the last time because the second time I damn near fell out.
Really?
Yeah.
And as the footage as we're looking at here, you could really see it's pretty easy to fall. Look, I don't know how many people haven't done it.
Well, so the thing is that it's a very similar restraint to like Nitro and a few of those other ones, where it's just kind of that clamshell, just kind of fits right over you. And the problem was that it was maybe about a click or 2 loose. Yeah. And so there was one. It wasn't even the big hill. It was one of the smaller hills, where I got about 6 inches of my left leg out, and I was like, oh no, this is not happening again. Nope, I'm good.
Right. Yeah, that is scary stuff, especially when you're on such a huge roller coaster like that. And so we're only there for a couple hours. I think SeaWorld closed like 8 o'clock, and it took all damn day for us to get this property over at over with Westgate. It took hours and hours and hours, a waste of like the entire day. It wasn't even worth the discounted ticket at that point because the day was gone. But we went over to SeaWorld, had a decent time. But at that point, now we start freaking out. What are we doing? We just did this. We don't even own a place. We don't own anywhere to live. Why are we buying a freaking timeshare? This is such a joke. This is such a ripoff. Let me Google now and see all the horror stories. Oh my gosh. But I knew I had the third party, guy, the lawyery guy. So I gave him a call and he was like, oh yeah, here's what I could offer you. Instead of this, rather than doing it every year, you can do it every 2 years. So it's just, you're cutting it even further in half. I was like, no, we don't want anything. We're done. He's like, right. I can't advise you any further. And he hung up and I could not get back in touch with the guy. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is not good at all.
Right.
So I was just freaking out. Didn't know what to do at this point. Now I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? What a horrible mistake. And we end up getting in touch with you. And so you were going to come meet us the next day. I think we had met you maybe when we first landed. I want to say we went down to Disney Springs when we first landed.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
You picked us up. We went over to Blaze Pizza. And at the time I thought Blaze Pizza was like this incredible place to go and eat because we didn't have any in New York. I
mean, it's still good.
It's still good. But now I have it across the street. So I go all the time.
There's definitely a novelty to it, especially when you first go, like the first couple of times. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. It's tasty. So we had gone there, and that was great. But this is like the next day we were going to see you guys. I think we were all going to go to Universal Studios, and so we end up going. And before we have to do this place we had to like basically with like a magnifying glass look at the fine tooth and basically see how we could cancel this. And their cancellation policy was like they need to get it within 72 hours, and it has to be certified mail in order for them to get it and sent overnight. So you drove us to a post office. We had every single thing sent out. We did every hoop they wanted us to. And this thing was finally canceled.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for it, too. But to this day, 5 years later, they still call me to check in and see how that property is. So
of course, like they have to. Like it's, it's timeshare law that like they have to make sure that they don't lose a sale.
Yeah. So they do. Oh, really? You canceled? Oh, man, is there any way you'd like to come back down? And we'll be able to, see you guys again. And interesting stuff. And a really, but we were very thankful that we had gotten rid of that timeshare. And that really was the first part of our trip there was that major part of it. Now, Universal Studios in 2017 is a totally different type of deal than what it is today. A lot of what they have today, they have a lot more newer type stuff that wasn't really around in 2017. Is that right?
They have definitely, well, I don't know about newer, but yeah, they have newer rides. I don't know if they're contemporary as much.
Oh, gotcha.
By that I mean, like, there's like instead of the Terminator 2 3D show, there's like a Bourne Identity show.
Oh, interesting.
Like, yeah, like very, and the Jimmy Fallon ride and like all that sorts of stuff.
Yeah, well, when we go to this, it is the time where Jimmy Fallon ride, they're doing like dry runs of the Jimmy Fallon ride. So we had gone over, and you'll see some Harry Potter stuff here. We didn't really know too much about Harry Potter, but we had gone to Universal Studios in California, so we were really excited to go and check it out here in Orlando. Do you enjoy going to Universal Studios?
I do. The last time I didn't enjoy it too much. It was about 2 weeks ago when we went for there's this great party that they throw called Gradventure. Oh, wow. They do two different ones. There's one for high school seniors that are graduating, and then another one for 8th grade middle schoolers that are graduating into high school. So I went on that, and it was great in theory.
But
so like the way as a chaperone, basically the way that we do it is that, like we check in with our, you get, I had a group of like 5 students of mine that I knew pretty well, that I'm like, okay, as long as you check in with me, as long as you send me a picture of everybody in the group, basically once an hour or so, and you just kind of constantly I know where you guys are, go ahead, do whatever you guys want to do. You don't need me weighing you down, right? And and they give you like a voucher for food. They give you like the chaperones had express pass, so you could just like cut the line every single time you want to go and all that kind of stuff. So it was great, but it rained the entire time. And
Ah,
and the thing is, like, I had packed a hoodie, and that was really it. So we got absolutely soaked.
yeah,
Um,
that
but
is
aside
tough.
from that,
And that'll ruin the
it would
whole
have been a
time.
great time.
Yeah, that'll ruin it too. And that's always with Orlando. You never know. You could just
Yeah.
get those days where it's pouring.
Right.
Some of the things here that we're looking at down in Universal City, you saw the picture of, and there you are, Steve and Amanda joining us for the trip. The Universal City, one of my wife's favorite places to go because they have Fat Tuesdays down there. Really fun place to go. And at the time, I had known pretty much that I wanted my bachelor party to be in Orlando for the Drink Around the World in Epcot. But as we're down here at Universal City, this is my first time really seeing the Orlando version of it. And I just loved it. I thought it was so cool, such a fun place to be, to walk around, to see all of this stuff. And I knew that one night when, if we had gone to the bachelor party, I was like, we got to have a night when we go out here and see some of this stuff over there to visit.
Well, and I think that was, I mean, obviously both times, both when we went to Universal and when we went to Epcot were both great times. But I mean, as far as like our time at Universal, even though we only spent one day, I feel like we did pretty much everything we wanted to.
Yeah, did we get fast passes? You
We
had
did.
a fast pass.
Not for Universal, no.
Oh no. Oh, yeah, we
No,
did. I
but
feel
the
like we
thing
got
is
hit
that
that
we
year.
went in January, in the middle of January, so we didn't really wait. I think the longest that we waited for a line was at Gringotts, the Harry Potter, the bank ride, and that was because it was very new, and we went like right at the end of the night.
That is true. That is true. Yeah, and then that night, I think I know we went back to Cowfish, you'll see a quick photo of Cowfish here, even though it looks like we went to the BK Lounge, the Burger King Whopper bar that they had on site there. But we ended up going to Cowfish, my favorite restaurant there, and that's where we went back for my bachelor party as well.
Yeah,
But
where we
yeah,
actually ate there.
yeah, we did eat at and that I still is the Cowfish still there?
Yeah, it's still there.
Yeah, I think it's such a cool idea. Basically, if you're a fan of sushi and burgers, it is about the greatest thing you could ask for because you're getting really the best of both worlds tied together there. And such a really fun place to go and visit. And so that was great. And then we knew we were going to be kicking things off here with our 4 days at the theme parks. I don't know if they still have this ticket, but back in April of 2017, you can get a 4-day pass to go to all 4 of the parks, 1 park per day, for a major steep discount than what you normally be able to do by doing like the 4, was it like a park hopper or something like that?
I don't think they still do that. At least they haven't done. Well, I don't think they've done a kind of ticket like that since COVID.
And you'll see here in this footage, we are on the tram, and Steve, you are not on the tram. You are walking beside the tram because you thought it would be easier to just walk it out rather than going on there. Do you still feel this way, or have you now started doing the tram ride?
I still do the tram. No, we still walk for the most part, unless it's really hot or we parked very far away.
Yeah, it's I think for me the tram as well as the monorail have become such a big piece of where we were at. There's a photo of my wife and I kissing on Splash Mountain. We did it was my wife's birthday on that trip as well, and so for the first time on this trip we did a Cinderella's Royal Table, which is like one of the most kind of hoity-toity types of places you can go ahead and eat while you're on Disney. Would you say it's one of the fanciest place? It's in Cinderella's castle.
So I would say it is more definitely one of the more exclusive places. It's one of the hardest to get, especially nowadays. I mean, if you want to go the most expensive and the most hoity-toity, that would be Victoria and Albert's.
Oh wow, have you been there?
No.
I feel like I want to go do that just to be like I was there, but no one would care. Like they hear Cinderella's Royal Table, no one knows what that is either. But when you say, "Oh, we didn't know that you could actually go into Cinderella's castle and be there," we thought this was something that they just had like an exclusive room for VIPs or when they do like Make-A-Wish type events. So to hear that we were able to do it, we were just blown away by it.
Right. Well, I mean, aside from that, that's the only way to do it is to eat at Cinderella's royal table.
Yeah, and that right there, the glass slipper there, the Magic Kingdom, with my wife's happy birthday on there, and so that was very cool. Animal Kingdom is next. Animal Kingdom in 2017, they debut their evening show. What is the name of this show? Is it still the same?
Rivers of Light?
I believe it's Rivers of Light.
I don't think they have it anymore, or at least it's definitely not the way it was in 2017.
It was right at 2017. It was like the big thing, and this is probably one of my favorite times here. I'm going to ask you if you remember what we did here in Animal Kingdom and why I enjoyed it so much. Do you remember that particular trip, what we did?
You're going to have to give me a hint.
It was something you did for us.
You did. Oh, well, is it to take you to Tiffin's?
That is correct. It was, I think that this was also, I mean, obviously in the last video you saw my wife's family that was there, so a couple of the kids were around, but this was like our chance to really, the four of us were here, we were enjoying each other's company, and yeah, Steve had surprised us with dinner at Tiffin's, and I think we all had some steak. I want to say we all had steaks. Is that right for Tiffin's?
It would be like some sort of steak or prime rib or something, because their specialty is more like not like super out there, but you're not going to get your kind of like standard either park food or even like going to a standard restaurant. Like the whole thing is that it wants to be more exotic flavors, like from regions that you might not necessarily think about.
Yeah, I thought it was really good stuff. To this day, that was such a fun memory. And then we went to the Rivers of Light for the first time, which I did not remember. I don't have any fond memories of. But I did appreciate that at least Animal Kingdom was trying at this point, and now I think they still are, to be a full day park. Because remember when Animal Kingdom first opened, it was like closed earlier than all the other parks. And
it still does to an extent. Rivers of Light was not. There was a lot of problems with it. First off.
Yeah.
And it was not very well received, and I think that's why they had gone back and retooled it. And then, to be honest, I don't know if it's still around at this point. I know they do something else, something with like kites or something.
Yeah, I remember that. We had done that, and then I remember I came back. So the photo you're about to see here, right after this. So here I am. We're flying high. We feel great, and I think at this point, we come up with the idea of doing the castle proposal for the best man thing. Because we know the next day we're going to be going to Hollywood Studios. You guys at the point were still cast members, so you were able to get us in and out of the parks pretty quickly. So even though we only had one park per day tickets, you were still able to get us the tickets to go park hopping.
Yeah, I think we had gotten, that was like a separate, you used your ticket, but then we also had to use our ticket also.
Right, that's true. Because you only had a certain number of them, right?
Yeah, and I think that was probably, if this was 2017, some of the last ones that we ever used.
Wow. Well, for my bachelor party, you had a few from me. You got me in somehow. You got me like something. I don't remember what it was, but you had something.
I'm pretty sure I just bought you a ticket.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm pretty we all kind of pitched in to just get you a ticket.
Gotcha. Well, so we come up with this idea. We're all excited, and I go back, and I think at the time the Hall of Fame had been on, so I'd watched the WWE Hall of Fame, and so I'm feeling great. And on top of this, I'm dealing with this major burden on right before I left. I had taken one of my best friends out to eat. He definitely thought, with good reason, that he was going to be a groomsman in my wedding. And I told him that I didn't have room for him. And the reason for that was it really came down to just a numbers game. I had the 4 people I had to do. I was already in your wedding. I was already in Joe's wedding. I was already in Dave's wedding. I had to pay that forward. And then there was James. So I had to also have James. So at the end of the day here, I had just one extra person. And I remember I had asked my wife, do you mind if I have one extra person? And she said, no, I don't want that because it's going to look weird. I don't know who she thought in retrospect was going to think this was going to look weird. But with that being said, I had to tell literally one of my best friends in the world that he wasn't in. And it was a horrible conversation. It was right before we left. I felt awful. But it was at this night, feeling so good. You took us out to Tiffin's. We're on top of the world. And I was like, I've got to do it. So this photo you see here is me talking with my buddy and letting him know that he had been, that I was including him in there. And here's the first footage of the list. So what I had done, the final phase of the list, there was one extra slot left open. And I said I had one extra slot, and then it was going to be for you. But then when I decided to include him, what I did was I had him fill the last slot. Then I brought the camera down further, and there was actually an extra line listed for the best man. And so that was listed as this is what's remaining on the list. And then the next day we go ahead and we do the proposal. So this day we started our day in Hollywood Studios, and we then left Hollywood Studios and went back to the Magic Kingdom, where you guys did use an entire getting guest pass. Was it guest passes?
Yeah, like comp tickets.
And you'll see here as the photo that I have is me, down on one knee right in front of the castle with the list, asking Steve to be my best man. There's no footage of it because there is somewhere footage, but I didn't include it in this vlog. And then Steve agreeing to be my best man. The best part about it is the look of utter having none of it on the gentleman right behind us face, as he's right behind us, seeing us do this, acting a fool, and thought it was one of the more sillier things, I guess, that he had seen, and just looked very grumpy in the photo. I
feel like there's also a woman in the background of one of the pictures too that is just filled with disdain. Like, could not. And it's either there are two sides to why people are upset. Either you're making a mockery of people who come and genuinely propose, which, I mean, hey, I proposed in front of the Cinderella Castle myself, so I've been there. Or, people that see one man getting down on one knee in front of another man and have issues with that, which is awful, but we're in Florida, so,
I don't even think I thought of it that way, but you're right. I mean, that might have been the unfortunate side of it. That could be why they were looking on like
but
that.
I do love that with all the things that you presented to me, it was the list.
Yes. So that's why I felt like we weren't making a mockery too much of it because the list was there, right? So I thought like that was kind of as a light. Type thing, that we added in there. And then afterwards, as you just saw the little footage there, we went over to Trader Sam's for the first time.
Yeah.
Love Trader Sam's. Trader Sam's one of the cooler places. So what a cool day we had here. We start off in Hollywood Studios. We end up going to the Magic Kingdom just to go in, do the quick proposal, back on the monorail to get over to Trader Sam's to have the huge drinks with the huge celebrations, which at the time my wife and I had never seen before. We were blown away by this. And I think we had planned it where you had to get there like right before it even opened, right?
Yeah, it was, especially because it was in March or like April, right? It was right around spring break type of, So we, I think, had to go and put our names on the list or something, and like it was a fairly long time.
So we go into Trader Sam's, and for those who we had to get a really early reservation because I think it was for spring break, and I think it was also Flower and Garden.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. So we had gone over, and it was just a lot of fun. We had never seen anything like it. Probably the best themed bar that's not in a park in all of Disney that I've seen. I mean, there's a lot of great ones though, so I don't know, but I love Trader Sam's.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of like the best in-park themed bar.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe the tequila bar in Mexico in Epcot.
That is fantastic. I like the one that you and I went to in Hollywood Studios. It was kind of like a beer garden-y type place.
Oh yeah, I mean that's really good too.
Yeah. There are some good ones. You could get your drink on if you go to Disney World for sure.
Of course.
But we went over to Trader Sam's, had a great time over there, and then continue our day and go back to Hollywood Studios to end things. And the Hollywood Studios at this point is very bare. So you might be thinking, if you're like my sister who likes to go to a theme park from the minute it opens to the minute it ends, you guys wasted so much of your day and so much of your time going back and forth and doing all these shenanigans. But at the end of the day, at this point, remember, there is no Galaxy's Edge. Pandora just opens. So is Pandora even...
I don't even think there's a Toy Story Land in 2017.
No, I think it just opened in 2018.
So, I mean, but we also did it, I think we did pretty much everything that there was to do. Like, we did the Beauty and the Beast show, we did the Little Mermaid show.
Yeah.
I think everything except the Disney Junior live on stage show.
Right, which now we've done, and we'd be there for hours on end. But
right.
But yeah, back then you're 100% right. We did everything. Pandora's not even there; it's in Animal Kingdom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like their big thing there. So we ended up. So I ended up putting this piece here at the end here because I do think if there's one moment that encapsulates the Disney spirit that I love more than any other, it's this piece of Fantasmic. I don't think Fantasmic's back yet, but the idea when all the characters show up and everybody's out and about and doing what they need to do, I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, and I miss Fantasmic so much.
We have a Fantasmic in this video. We must have a Fantasmic Fast Pass because we're very close.
I don't think we do. I think it's just that we happen to get there early, and the thing is that they kind of they do like section by section. So I think we just happen to be. I'm pretty sure we're like way off to the side.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I remember now. It's also like beginning of the week. There wasn't the wrestling fans there yet. Like the wrestling fans you had a couple that were doing the full week, but now as you're getting to like your Thursday, Friday, I remember vividly like Space Mountain line, one side, AJ Styles, the other side, Shane O'Mac, and like just like this is the greatest experience ever. So I remember Fantasmic, and before things start, they try to get everything going with like everyone's clapping or doing some like silliness in order to get the crowd involved before the show starts.
Yeah.
And me and a couple other fans trying to do the New Day Rocks and trying to get like that whole thing going as well. So yes. And then right before things go on, and it is like the day, now it's the final day here in Disney. So it becomes a little tough. And actually before we even get there, we go back to Disney Springs. In this very fuzzy video, we are back at Disney Springs for Raglan Road.
Yeah.
Would you say that this is because I'm guessing we didn't eat at Hollywood Studios and wanted to get some food, and so we cut back that way?
Well, it was also probably if we did that the same night as we did Fantasmic, by the time we got out of Fantasmic, I think everything probably would have been closed anyway.
That's true.
So we probably had a late dinner over at Raglan Road.
Yeah, and my wife there dressed to the nines, so I think we even changed a little bit. Me wearing that exact same plaid red shirt I've had on pretty much this entire video. And if you go to the archives and watch Long Wrestling, you will see me wearing that same plaid shirt many, many times. But we are throwing down with some grub. But yeah, Raglan Road I think is my favorite spot in all of Disney Springs. It feels like it belongs in Epcot. It really just captures the entire Irish spirit, to say the least.
Well, and I think it's been so good for so long. It's just one of the more consistent. It feels very comforting. It's definitely one of our comfort spots. Yeah,
I remember my last name, which is a very very Irish last name, on the spot. My wife ended up getting it took me a little bit.
It's the spot.
That's right. The spot. So we ended up before we get to Epcot, we ended up going over to and we got like these little keychains that we still have to this day because we just got engaged, and so we were all happy to get all of that, and that was a great evening there, which would leave us to the next day, which is always tough because especially visiting you guys down here in Orlando. The last day is always a difficult one. It's a heavy-hearted one because it's going to be the end of the trip, and the last time we'll see you guys. So, but what the cool thing about this particular Epcot trip was that really our WrestleMania experience was starting the next day.
Mm-hmm.
But going to Epcot, I remember my wife and I got there very early because there was an attraction that just opened up. Do you remember which attraction it was?
Only because I'm watching it now, but I know it was there too. It's the Frozen Ever After.
Frozen Ever After. And so my wife and I, at the time when you first entered into Epcot, you see us going up by the big ball here. The World Showcase wouldn't open early. It would be pretty much delayed until around 11 or 12 o'clock, and you'd be able to do like the Future World stuff. Is it Future World stuff, right? Like
Yeah, Future World. So Epcot opens at 9, and you can still you can walk around and stuff before then, but the World Showcase, all the restaurants and all the shops and everything like that opened up at 11, except for everything leading up to Norway.
Yes. And so this is like the host of characters that are on this trip with us here. Frozen Ever After, an underrated attraction. I do remember this at this point. My wife, it was running thin with me asking everyone who was wearing a wrestling shirt if they were going to the show. That was my thing. You go to the show. You go to WrestleMania. And obviously, everyone pretty much who's wearing a wrestling shirt 2 days before WrestleMania at Epcot is probably going to WrestleMania. But I asked everybody who was there. That was my thing, and then they would lead to like the most awkward of all awkward conversations. Love wrestling fans, but sometimes it's a little awkward having a conversation and standing on the line. You have a whole thing about, you talking wrestling memories, what you're looking most forward to. My wife probably had the patience was running a little thin with these types of remarks. So I end up leaving, and we leave Frozen Ever After. We're walking around middle of the day, and I happen to see a gentleman walking by here, and you'll see the photo here in a second. And the guy's wearing a Young Bucks shirt. And at the time, the Young Bucks were one of the most popular acts in all of the indie scene. This particular weekend, they were doing a big ladder war with the Hardys. They were very much involved and really kind of exploding onto the scene through Hot Topic and the Bullet Club stuff. And so I was a big fan of the Young Bucks. So I let out a big, "Hey, Young Bucks," and threw up my 2 sweets. And the guy turned around and called me back over. And lo and behold, it was indeed Matt Jackson of the Young Bucks. And it was one of the most awesome but yet awkward run-ins I've ever had with someone. But that, in my opinion, is the spirit of WrestleMania week, that you can see a talent at any place at any time. And now, obviously, so you're very familiar with the Young Bucks watching AEW.
Yeah, I was going to say, I actually know who that is now.
That's right. For years, I was telling you this about this random meeting.
I feel like there is a small contingent of wrestlers who love Disney World, though, is there not?
Mm-hmm. And I did not know this at the time, but I do think that he was making it clear he was going to be at the parks. And so, he calls us over and he starts talking to us about what we're doing over WrestleMania week. And it's awkward because we're doing a damn thing. So I'm like, well, we really haven't done much yet, but we're going to do all these WWE things. And I felt weird telling him that because he wasn't a part of it, but couldn't have been any nicer. He's probably one of the coolest people I think I've ever met. And literally said, like, if you guys have a few minutes, Nick will be done getting the food for the family soon. Because what he was doing was bringing a stroller over to the stroller area from wherever that restaurant is. I don't know if you could tell in the photo wherever they are. And we tried to go ahead but I felt so embarrassed even taking his time at this point, because again, I'm thinking it's just some random fan wearing the Young Bucks tee, not an actual member of the Young Bucks. And so I had told him, hey, go ahead and just get back to your family, but thank you so much for taking a couple minutes. And but totally made the whole week trip there one of the coolest memories that I have of the entire weekend.
It looks like you guys are right outside of Norway in that picture.
Look at that, Steve. That's pretty impressive stuff there.
Well, that's what it looks like, yeah.
Yeah, so you're probably right. So we had seen him there. And then the next piece of footage you'll see is Test Track. So this is an odd situation here. You and I believe Kenzie are on this trip, on this ride with us. Amanda's not here at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I would say she was probably working.
There you go. Yeah. So we were over there doing that. And that right there, where your finger is behind my ear, is the backdrop photo for our Disney 101 wallpaper on our YouTube channel over there.
And I have to say, during this ride, you look concerned, to say the least, through some of this.
And dare I say, perhaps this is not the most flattering of angles. Right in between my legs. I do like that shot though, but I was able to get the camera up to get it on you guys. It looks so nothing worse than the over dramatic me waggling my head around after the thing comes to a stop. Yes, but there's the famed photo there, that young man living in infamy forever on our channel. And then my wife's parents end up catching us for dinner. And Amanda did, I guess, so she came after work as well. But there's everyone clapping. Everybody clapping. I'm getting a photo of everyone here as they're doing it. You're trying to get me to not watch the show of it. But I was so happy that my father-in-law there was so into the entire experience at Epcot, because he was so against going.
Yeah.
I think you guys got them in for free.
That sounds right. Yeah.
And then they took you guys out to eat at Germany.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right.
But yeah, now, so basically we say goodbye now to Steve and Amanda, and we are now on our way to spend a couple days doing our WrestleMania trip, even though it was, very, very minimal here. So we get down there. I want to say this must be Saturday, right beforehand. You could even tell how hot it is in the footage. That there's the Orlando Eye. Have you ever gone on the Orlando Eye, Steve?
Absolutely not, and I never will.
Very hot. Is it because of the height?
It's because of the height and the general lack of safety measures and avoidance of safety measures and all sorts of stuff that whole complex has.
There is, I've never been to that one, but there is one similar in Vegas, but that one is pretty safe, and that one's pretty cool too. You could be like kind of on the whole thing, see the whole strip. I just don't also know if there's really any reason to go to that. I think we were just because the way they set up WrestleMania this year was you had to get there, and then we were there to see NXT, which was at the Amway Arena, I want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go, Amway Center.
Yeah.
For NXT, and so in that little area, they also set up shuttles to take you to where you were going for WrestleMania 33. I guess because it kind of passed through a seedier part of town, and they wanted to avoid people going through that area. So you can see here, everyone afterwards is, doing 10s for Ty Dillinger. Everyone's amped up. They're all excited for the potential of Nakamura debuting on SmackDown, which he did do a couple days later. And you can see here, and you'll see another minute of it here in the next clip that's about to come. They really took over this little area here in downtown Orlando and made it so much into WrestleMania. Actually, we're going to show you a little access here. As you guys know, I'm a huge Access fan. It's pretty repetitive each year, but I love it. And I feel like, Steve, you'd probably even enjoy Access just because of all the old artifacts and everything else that you see here.
Oh yeah, I mean, I do love, going through time in that way and, looking at all the different stuff. So I'm sure I would get a kick out of that part.
Yeah, this part is really cool, especially Access back here in 2017. They really hadn't mastered the idea of being able to meet a lot of people to pay for your buck. So this is my wife's birthday. We had done all the Access pieces of it. So we had done like a lot. When we went to Access, it was a lot of seeing the artifacts, seeing all the different exhibits they had. They did like a shark cage exhibit that we got a kick out of in WrestleMania 33 time. And it led to and then I think we got one or two meet and greets. I want to say we met someone maybe like R-Truth or somebody like that.
Yeah.
But it was cool to still be there and to get access in, especially, I think this is, I want to say this might have even been Sunday morning. Probably was. It was right before WrestleMania. Yeah, there they are, R-Truth and Goldust at the quick. I love Goldust with the street clothes with the Goldust face. But yeah, when we go to Access, we typically go to experience some of the different pieces. We know you're not going to, at the time, you weren't getting a lot of autograph signings with your money that you were spending at Access. So, I mean, it was cool, but you'd typically pay $50. You'd want to make sure, what we'd always do is we'd do a quick look through everyone to see if there's anyone that we really wanted to see. If not, we would get around and try to do all the artifacts and do all the cool pieces and then circle back and do a meet and greet or so.
So I'm curious to my knowledge, there's no permanent Hall of Fame fixture for the WWE, is there?
There's not. So actually, when WrestleMania was first announced to come to Orlando, there was a rumor that in conjunction with it coming to Orlando, was going to be the time that WWE was going to, I don't know if WWE announced this, I feel like they did. They were going to unveil a physical Hall of Fame at this event.
Which, I mean, I feel like it makes sense. Like there are a couple of different places that you could probably think, where is it going to be? Like you don't want to throw it in Manhattan. There's already so much stuff. Maybe right. In Greenwich, Connecticut, maybe, but Orlando, I guess, makes a certain amount of sense. This is where a lot of their stuff has happened over the years. So
yeah, I think, and I remember there maybe even being a rumor that it would be in Disney Springs. And it ended up instead going to the NBA experience.
Yeah, which, I mean, I'd say, like, I feel like that could be a great use of that space, since there's not really a whole lot else going on right now with it.
Yeah, I mean, NBA experience is already done 5 years later. So they were building it in 2017. It's done. So, I mean, I think it could have been maybe good for WWE to be down there. And they had such a presence in Orlando at the time. It was very Orlando heavy stuff going on for WWE. They have their performance center in Orlando. They have their they were doing Full Sail, obviously, for NXT. Yeah. So they were down here all the time. So it made sense. It would have been very easy for them too to like have NXT matches go on while at the Hall of Fame. Could have made it a really interactive type of deal. But to this date, 5 years later, they still do not have a physical Hall of Fame. But at Access, they have the Hall of Fame where all the different artifacts, and they change it up because they have an entire an entire area where you can go to, and it's just basically everything is cataloged, and they keep every single piece of memorabilia that's been used. So each year that stuff filters in and out at Access, and you can go to each one and see different artifacts from all the Hall of Famers from that year, as well as each WrestleMania that's coming up.
Well, and that's why it's so strange that there's not a physical Hall of Fame place that you can go to. And not for nothing, but down here, like there's TNA, there's AEW, if I'm not mistaken. There's clearly a strong continuous wrestling community presence here. So I would say that if there's and also for my own personal I would love to go and check it out. So I'd love for it to be right in my backyard. But I feel like it makes sense. At the very least, make it somewhere.
Yeah, and I think their plan was to do the restaurant deal too initially. I will say the restaurant I think is a little harder when it comes to a Hall of Fame type deal like Cooperstown Baseball Hall of Fame. You can go there and see the stuff all the time with its rich history. So I do think a museum would lend itself to something like that. And I could really see it's a shame it still hasn't happened. I'm surprised it hasn't happened, and I hope that someday it will.
Yeah, I mean, also considering like Access seems very popular, and if you're saying, and not that you have to have, I mean, and it could be a place where you could have certain signings and certain, whatnot, other sorts of events kind of happen, but at the very least, like if you have all of this stuff already anyway, why not put it on display somewhere where fans could access it wherever they want? I know, I'm sure it makes it kind of very, very special when it's at WrestleMania, but I feel like if there's a demand for it, you might as well. There's definitely a spot for it somewhere.
100%. Yeah. I mean, and I really think particularly, I mean, I think they were a little gun shy about this type of stuff because of the WWF New York place. But I think with WWF New York, the idea of operating a restaurant was in the middle of Times Square was such a huge cost.
Yeah.
That they had to, really stretch some talent thin, put on all these different types of events to get people to come. I don't think they'd have to do that with Hall of Fame. I think it would really sell itself. And if they continue to do different things to make it interesting and change things up, I think they can do very well, like they do with Access. I mean, I love Access. I've been there probably 5-6 times, and it is pretty repetitive. You're seeing, the same type of stuff, but I love it. I can't get enough of it. I go there each and every time, and most of the time you don't get too many signings at it.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that says you need like a whole ring and you need to like actually have things like WWF New York go on. Like, I mean, there is a spot for a restaurant in there already in the NBA experience. There's stuff for the store. You could make a very interesting spot, even if it's not Disney Springs, which, I mean, the NBA experience would be a perfect location for it. But even if it's not there, like, there is tons of space down here.
Especially because there's so many people who go to Disney Springs at the start of their trip and they're just pining to do something. before they get to their major, parks and everything else that's coming up. So I think it would do well. Hopefully it does get there. What I think did particularly well though during this week was the way that they set up the entire area for WrestleMania 33. You can see a little bit of this here as we're coming through. You can see that they basically have all these different posters, huge deals with all the different wrestlers' faces on it, promoting all of the big matches. Each one of the superstars really highly profiled. One of the things that I loved about it, right before the show had started, we had gone and eaten at one of the bars, and they were playing a variety of different wrestling theme songs, different types of songs to get people excited. I'll never forget they had played the Armageddon 2002, I want to say it was, theme song, the end is here. And that's like a random song you and I would hear and go, oh, I remember that. And this was like everybody word for word in unison in the entire city screaming the lyrics to this random pay-per-view song. And I thought it was awesome. And then of course they played Cult of Personality for Punk, and the place just completely went nuts because the idea that 5 years ago people never thought he'd be back, and who would ever think 5 years later he'd be the world champion of a company rivaling WWE.
Well, also to be fair, 5 years ago AEW did not exist, so
there was no major company other than WWE. Yeah. You're right.
I mean, the number two was TNA.
Well, number two in the U.S. was TNA. Yeah, I'd say probably New Japan was on the rise because of the Bullet Club stuff. And AJ Styles going over there, Finn Balor, the Young Bucks, that whole Bullet Club really blew up. But yeah, I'd say in the U.S. it would be TNA, and that was way, way down on the list. Comparatively, WWE at the time probably is creating the second biggest company of their own in NXT. So this here, a quick picture here. We don't have too much of the actual footage of the WrestleMania 33 event. And I don't think this is the, for me to go in the ins and outs of the actual event. But this is one of the coolest entranceways they'd ever done. You can kind of see here, they kind of recreate the globe of, I guess it is Epcot. Mm-hmm. They kind of have that out there. It was called the world's greatest amusement park or greatest theme ride for WrestleMania that year. So everything is just built up as like a theme park. And they really changed, in the Citrus Bowl there, which is a pretty dingy building. They turned it into an incredible, it's much better now. And certainly in 2017, it's actually really nice. Yeah. But they turned it into an incredible complex.
Yeah, which, I mean, WWE is great about taking, all you need is the seats. They can fix everything else. They can, they change stages and platforms, and they have the set pieces and everything. So all they really need is the seats.
Yeah. And then this last bit here, this is at a random park. Basically what had occurred here, I had met a guy on eBay who I became good friends with. My hair is something else. It is defying laws of gravity here.
It always is.
But that there is really something. I don't know what is going on there. I'm already promoting the idea of going the next year, which I do at every end of every year. I'll have to get into that at some point because I don't go the following year, and I am not happy about it. But this belt. So the guy I met on eBay, who was a friend of mine, said, "I know you're down in Orlando. I hope you get a chance. Hopefully you got a picture with the big belt." And this was after WrestleMania. It's like, the big belt? Where's the big belt? And he's like, "Oh, it's at Lake Eola Park." I was like, where the hell is Lake Eola Park? So the next day, even though we had to catch a flight pretty early to get out of there on Monday morning, Lake Eola Park, we ended up finding it and getting a picture with the big WrestleMania belt. And I thought this was just one of the coolest things, so random there. And a nice little picture of my wife and I. And here we go. A little bonus scene here of you having none of my vlogging there. But I mean, all in all, I will just say, in looking back at this, I don't know. A lot of people dog on WrestleMania 33 for being very long. I don't know if it was just the atmosphere of it being outside. I don't know if it was just the culmination of a huge week, the return of the Hardys. I don't know what it was, but I have such a fond place in my heart for that WrestleMania. I loved it. I thought it was great.
Which, again, having an outside event in Orlando in April is very bold.
Yes.
It's a very brave action.
It really is. And, that little and I mean, I'll never forget, we did leave before Raw that night because, I mean, at this point, this trip is like a 9-day, really long trip. We were there for this is probably one of the longest trips we had ever had to Orlando. And we really got a ton in there. You think about it, the 6 days of theme parks, the 2 days of WrestleMania, and then a day, obviously, of traveling, getting there before that. We definitely were in Orlando for 9 full days there. So 2 weekends and a full 5-day week. Such a fun time. Such great memories on that trip. And I loved it. I thought it was just a cool deal there.
Yeah, and your longest trip down here since then. Like, every other trip has been like 2 or 3 days at most.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 2018 trip, yeah, I mean, I want to say that one was maybe a little longer, but then definitely when we had the 2 trips in 2019, the one where Erica came down with me,
yeah,
that one I think was a little longer. You and I had a couple days before she came down,
that's
which
true.
was cool. And then where I had the quick trip after that, I think known as the debacle trip down to Florida. But
mistakes were made trip.
Indeed. I do think that now I would have actually had a good time on that trip. I think at the time I just never really done anything alone and solo, and so I think that's why I had such a tough time and didn't have a car. It was a weird. I did have a car, but then I didn't have a car.
Well, you had a car, but there was a lot of issues with the car.
The car was terrible.
Yeah.
Yes, and then we also had a kid coming in like 3 or 4 months. I was starting a job like the next week. So
there was a lot of. It was just a perfect storm of
stress.
Yeah, coming back, doing it again. There's a lot of things that we could do differently.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll be able to go visit you guys soon. There is another Easter egg actually after the bumper here. I didn't notice this. This is us on Erica's first time ever on the. I want to say this is, I guess, Twilight Tower of Terror.
Let me see. I did not know that there was a second stinger.
Neither did I. I didn't realize this was like. I didn't realize there was so much. I was being Martin Scorsese here in my directing of my.
Or a Marvel. It was a Marvel movie.
Yes, exactly. Marvel movie. That after the credits ended, there had to be a little end scene. But that is us on the Twilight Tower of Terror. And I think it's just a cute little scene where we have the camera on and we're filming everything. And I think everybody keeps saying, "Hey, why don't you put your phone down?" And then finally you guys go, "No, but seriously, put your phone down."
Right.
So, but yeah, so very, very.
Oh yeah, definitely Tower.
Terror,
yeah.
But yeah, so very fun time there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I know this was not the ins and outs. Would you say your thought would be to put this on the wrestling channel either way?
I would say, I mean, it's tough because we did talk so much more about Disney than we did wrestling.
Yeah, a lot more, right? So maybe we do put it on the Disney Channel.
You can put it on both. Why not?
There you go.
Market one side to the other side, and
kind of go from there. I do think though that it even though there isn't much wrestling, it does kind of take on the idea behind the idea that a WrestleMania trip includes so many pieces to it. I mean, at least for us, a lot of people don't do WrestleMania like we do WrestleMania. I'm not saying we do WrestleMania the best way. A lot of people like to get as much wrestling in as possible. They go to tons of conventions and shows and they just get as much wrestling as they can. But for us, we knew it was going to be the perfect storm of creating an atmosphere. We'd be able to go to the theme parks, get all of that in there, and then go to wrestling at the end.
Well, I think sometimes it depends where you are. Like Orlando, there's so much to do and so much to see. Whereas maybe if you're at a city where there's not as much that you want to do, you would probably focus more on the wrestling stuff. But, a city like Orlando, because especially, with Disney World being here and Universal and SeaWorld and all sorts of other stuff, like.
Yeah, it's a great city, and that was a very fun trip. Even though you guys did not come to wrestle, do you think now, if things had gone differently, do you think now you would have accompanied us to WrestleMania?
I'm not sure. I don't think Amanda would have.
Yeah,
because I still have a long way to go to try and get her into wrestling.
Yeah, that's very true. Also, now WrestleMania. Back then is one of the final times WrestleMania is like a 6-hour, 7-hour extravaganza. Yeah. Now it would be split over 2 days.
Right. So that's good at least.
Which I don't think lends itself to an as fun traveling experience, because I think it's hard to keep yourself up for 2 straight nights of WrestleMania than as opposed to one huge event.
I mean, especially like I remember even like when we would do like Bamboozle, we did Bamboozle 2 days a couple of times, and it was like the second day was just, we were just wiped by the first one. Like,
yeah, dragging yourself. If you look at our WrestleMania 38 vlogs, I mean, the first day we're so amped. We have this whole day where we're out doing a ton of stuff, and the next one we don't wake up till 1 o'clock in the afternoon because we're dead tired. So,
and
but yeah,
especially if it comes back to Orlando, you throw in 4 or 5 days at the theme parks and then 2 days of wrestling.
Right. Well, and I'll never forget when, because we came back that next day and Monday and ended up getting a huge delay on our JetBlue flight. And we ended up getting delayed, stuck on like the tarmac when we landed in New York, but they couldn't let us off for some reason for hours. So around 8 o'clock comes and somebody, I guess, asked, hey, can you put the TVs back on so we could at least watch the live TV? And pretty much everyone on this flight is watching Raw. And this Raw is known pretty much as, Roman Reigns retires The Undertaker the night before. Undertaker would go on to wrestle for another 3.5 years. But Reigns comes out and the place boos him so bad. And I'll never forget the moment of being on the plane and all of us booing Roman Reigns while on this plane. And it's just like, that's like the typical wrestling fan of like, you've had all this wrestling, you can't wait to go home and watch Raw. It's just like a crazy, crazy feeling there. So. But thanks for reliving this with me here, Steve. A very, very fun time, and I'm excited about this too because now, as the year continues, we'll have a couple more of these look backs here at the year of 2017. But then, as we get into 2018, with really the launch of the channel and the year that I do get married, maybe we'll bring a little look back at our bachelor party extravaganza, this is kind of the precursor to that because 9 months later we're back here doing a bunch of stuff as the bachelor party of it.
That's true. It would be awesome to relive the bachelor party, especially if we could get a couple of the guys on.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Nav and everyone else would be fun to get them back on. We'll have to see, but that'll be a stinger there. But thanks again, Steve, for reliving this all here with us, and we will talk to you guys again real soon.